Two State House districts with open seats look to elect first-time legislators this year. We'll talk with the candidates for Maui County's multi-island district, State House District 13, which includes Molokai, Lanai, Kaho'olawe, and Kahului, Wailua, and Hana on Maui. We'll also talk with the candidates for the newly redistricted State House 36, which takes in a large portion of Waipahu. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise. Tonight we'll be talking with candidates for two open seats in the Hawaii House of Representatives. First, we'll sit down with the candidates for State House District 13. District 13 is one of two canoe districts in Hawaii. It includes portions of East Maui from Kahului to Hana, Molokai, Lanai, and Kaho'olawe. Incumbent Representative Linda Clark lost in the Democratic primary, so District 13 will see a first-time lawmaker elected. Later in the program, we'll talk to candidates for Waipahu's State House District 36. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email us or call with your questions. We also encourage you to get involved with the conversation happening now on Facebook. And now to our guests who are joining us tonight via Zoom. Republican Scott Adam is a former professional snowboard coach. He has worked as a program director for youth and professional sports. He also created a summer camp for kids in the juvenile justice system and a yoga and wellness festival for underserved communities. Democrat Mahina Poipoi is from Mana'e, Molokai. She's a former small business owner and currently works as a legislative analyst for the County of Maui. She is also an outreach assistant for the Molokai Invasive Species Committee and a project coordinator for the nonprofit Aina Momona. Green Party candidate Nick Nakilananda is a former Maui County teacher. He served on the board for Maui's county community television station, Akaku. He also served as the commissioner of the Mayor's Task Force for Higher Education and as the co-chair for the Green Party of Hawaii. Thank you all for being here tonight. Mahina, I want to start with you. This is a very diverse district, of course, encompassing parts of 4 islands. Tell us what you think they all have in common in terms of what you would say is the most critical issue facing the district.
So District 13 is very diverse. It also includes Molokini. And I just wanted to correct that I am not currently working as a legislative analyst. I did resign from that position to campaign for this position. I think that, what I've been hearing and what I've been feeling is that cost of living issues are a uniting factor across the district. I think that, especially in the rural areas, we feel it more because cost of goods, cost of services, electricity, groceries, gasoline now is higher in our rural areas. Also the availability of housing, we feel it too, just like the rest of this state. So I would say that that is probably the most common uniting issue that I see across our district, but each community and each island have their individual issues and needs and characteristics as well.
And Scott, what would you say? What's the biggest issue facing the district?
I would agree a lot with Mahina on that. This is such a diverse district, and the continual rise of cost of living is just going through the roof, and the gas prices is making it really difficult on anybody. Especially having to trek across the island to go to work, and the shortage of housing and the rising costs of housing it's hurting everybody. And so, we really need to come together if we're going to be able to keep the kids who grew up here able to continue to live and survive here.
And Nick, what's your take? What do you think is the biggest issue facing the district?
Well, as was already said, each island is unique. Kaho'olawe, to start there, needs to be cleaned up. It's reprehensible that it's still filled with unexploded ordnance. The district has these 4 islands, 3 of the most remote areas of the state in this one island. And I testified at the Reapportionment Commission for them to look at this, because as you mentioned, there's only 2 canoe districts. The other one has a little bit of, has Niihau and a bit of Kauai. And so what Lanai is faced with basically is having one person who owns most of the island, and it's impacting their traditions. Molokai is challenged with holding on to their way of life. It's a tight-knit community deficient in many social and governmental services, which is true about the whole district. And then Maui is so different from the district now goes from the airport. I'm not sure how many people live at the airport. Reminds me of the George Carlin line. And it goes then to Spreckelsville and Paia through where I live in Hawelo on the North Shore, all the way out to Hana, Kaupo, and Kipahulu. And each area, I mean, Kipahulu is really different than Hawelo, which is very different than Spreckelsville. So I think that the lack of government services and support services is a major challenge for this district.
And given all those challenges, let's stay with you on this issue. Given all the challenges and the diversity of the district, as the representative, how would you work to make sure that you represent all the communities in the district?
Well, again, it's quite a challenge. So, of course, connecting with each community association, traveling the district, holding numerous town hall meetings. And at these town hall meetings, what I have seen with my past representatives, they come and they talk to us and then they take off. And I want to be available to listen. That to me is the reason to be a representative and to hear what's impacting, because I know what's impacting my life, but that's quite different than other people. And of course, we have a growing houseless population. We have a lack of affordable housing. So there's a lot of issues that I will be listening to my constituents.
And Scott, same question. How would you make sure that you represent all the communities, given the challenges, you know, that you are traveling between all those different islands and that the needs are so diverse?
Well, one of the biggest issues we've had is lack of availability of the elected officials. And so in my game plan, it would be numerous town halls, as well as establishing regional committees that are on my advisory board. In this way, we can continue to have a ongoing conversation about the individual needs of the different communities. Yeah, I think that because of the level of diversity, because of the difference in needs throughout the entire district, we really need to have representation in each one of the regions, and a representation on my advisory board would be the game plan to really be able to listen and hear what the people need. That's really my true way to serve in my best as an elected official.
And Mahina, how about you? What do you think you could do if elected to make sure that you take into account the needs of the full community?
I think, you know, I would plan to make regular visits to each island and each community. You know, there's really no reason to not be engaging our communities, especially with the technology that we have now. We don't necessarily need to be there in person, which before, you know, was a restricting factor. I would love to see district staff and district offices funded. The county has district offices, and I think it really increases accessibility, making sure that our communities know how to participate in testimony and, you know, participate more fully at the legislature. It's really hard to keep track of. And, you know, just providing that outreach piece. I'm coming from a background in community advocacy and being on the other side and, you know, coming up on closed doors and deaf ears in my legislator. And, you know, I know what that feels like, and I don't want to do that. And I want to do the opposite of that. I'm very sensitive to the voices of my community. I know the power of a well-organized community. And so I think, you know, that's some of how I would address that.
Okay, we always like to bring in audience questions, and we have a couple already here tonight. Kent in Kailua says, President Biden took steps today to perhaps decriminalize marijuana on the federal level. Is it time to legalize recreational marijuana in Hawaii? Scott, let's start with you.
That's a very interesting question. While I think it's a very valuable medicine, and I think all plants, natural plants and natural medicines should be available to the people and utilized. The biggest issue that I have seen across the nation when we have legalized is big corporations taking over and controlling the taxation and over pricing of cannabis. And so I'm not a huge I'm not a huge fan of legalization of recreation. I am, however, a fan of decriminalization, bringing bringing cannabis into a recreational situation that's available in stores takes away, a lot of the power from the small family farmer, as well as puts a lot of extra taxes into and extra money into large corporations. I mean, we've seen it in Colorado, we saw it in California, what it's done to the prices, and it's also what it's done to the overall market of the plant itself.
Okay, Mahina, what's your take on this?
I do support recreational legalization. Scott is right. There is the risk of the corporate piece, capitalizing, but I think we could take that into account and look at ways to make it more accessible to small local farmers. There are lessons to be learned from the other models out there and from the other states doing it. I know in Colorado, the recreational tax funds a lot of public education initiatives. And we need to fund our public education system. And so I think that could be one solution to that.
Nick, where do you stand on legalizing recreational marijuana?
Hawaii legalized medicinal marijuana 15 years or so ago, and yet it took years for places where people could, outlets where they could obtain their medicine. It's shocking that Hawaii does not have legalized marijuana. And as a member of the Green Party, we have advocated the legalization of marijuana and cannabis, and even looking at other drugs. Now, there's places that are talking about legalized psilocybin. These have to be done with lots of caution, but obviously to have it illegal, to have police still arresting people for utilizing cannabis. And the reality is I've been on Maui 35 years, and it's rare that I've gone to a party with doctors, lawyers, real estate agents, mortgage people, professionals who aren't partaking of cannabis, and yet everybody is breaking the law. So it's way over time. It keeps on getting killed by the Democrat majority in the state legislature. And that's why it's really good to have someone from the Green Party who will bring up the issues that really need to be addressed. And simply, and I do want to also underline what Mahina and Scott said, that yes, the benefit of having not legalized it is that we can look at what's happened in other states where they have legalized it. So yes. It's long overdue.
Let's get to some of more of these viewer questions because they're great. Let's listen to Lola on Molokai, and Mahina, we'll start with you on this. How would you support farm worker housing? We say we support farmers, but housing is one of the most critical issues for them. What do you say to Lola?
I think we need to look at how we're prioritizing the use of our agricultural lands. We need to, and this might be more at the county level, but there's things we could do at the state level as well, to make sure that we're not continuing to allow pseudo-agricultural uses on lands meant to be farmed and meant to be used for farm dwellings. We see a lot of, large luxury homes being built and passed off as farm dwellings with no agriculture happening on the property. And those properties are forever being taken out of, the feasibility then of one day being used for agriculture because now the value is so increased. So I do support farm dwellings and, expanding farm housing that is actually meant to house farm workers. And I think looking at land use and zoning can help to bring that to fruition.
Okay, Nick, what do you say to Lola? She says, how would you support farm worker housing? We say we support farmers, but housing is one of the most critical issues for them.
Well, I'm going to follow up what Mahina just said. Zoning needs to be looked at by the county. We also have the state that gets involved in land use. We need to look at small houses and tiny houses, and also for people to build on ag land, second and third small homes. And again, what we've seen on Maui for years, these gated community agricultural subdivisions. We've been fighting this for years, again, because of who controls the legislature, and the Planning Commission is usually people who come from the real estate and the development and the building industries. So there's so much that needs to be looked at. And we have the opportunity now to support our agriculture, especially in Maui County, for example. We now have a Department of Agriculture, and that lots of people are talking about how we need food security and food independence. So again, this is something that's long overdue, and we need to push for the opportunity. Again, we know what a gated community house and a farmhouse is, and these need to be looked at with stringent controls, but also the allowing of people to develop housing in appropriate places.
Scott, what do you say to Lola tonight?
Like most of the issues we have here in the islands is overregulation, and we give priorities, like Nick said, to these agricultural gated communities while restricting actual working farms from being able to provide housing. There's so many options right now of how to build very affordable and quick housing. We've got great technologies and great building techniques, but we seem to have roadblocks with the regulations that have been put in place. And so, realistically, to solve the farming housing issue as well as the housing issue in general, we need to take a look at the regulations that have continued to put a stranglehold on the ability for property owners to put up affordable housing that can support farm workers.
On that subject of regulation, Gregory has a question which ties into some regulatory issues as well. He asks, what are your ideas for destination management? Scott, let's stick with you for the first question on this. We talk a lot about managing tourism. We know that parts of this district in particular have felt the influx of visitors post-pandemic, or whatever however you would phrase the situation that we're in right now, not quite out of the pandemic, but certainly not 2 years ago. So what do you say to Gregory in terms of your ideas for destination management?
It's a challenging one. Overall, I really feel that one of the biggest solutions to destination management would be steering our economy away from a tourist-based economy, where we focus so much on providing tourist accommodations, and we need to get back to the people of Hawaii. We need to get back to the people who live here and focus on building an economy that can actually support those who survive here, instead of just the corporations that come in and build large hotels or tourist destinations. Education is another big part. We need to educate those who are coming in. And then in addition to that, I feel like we need to revisit the taxation policy on tourists, on the tourism industry in general, making it in a situation where if you're going to come to the islands, then your tax money needs to benefit those people who actually are the residents.
Mahina, what do you say to Gregory tonight about your ideas for destination management?
Yeah, I support very bold tourism management strategies. You know, sometimes a no is a no. On Molokai, you know, we have our own way of managing tourism. We've been resistant to developing our tourism industry, and you know, in the pandemic, that showed because our economy wasn't as hard hit because we weren't overly reliant on tourism. We were the first island to set a cap of 0 short-term rentals, so 0 vacation rental, you know, Airbnb style lodging, meaning that they would no longer be permitted. I was a leader in that effort. It took years to get it passed. It took a change in guard at the council to get it passed. But you know, over the pandemic, we've seen our environments literally coming back to life. So we know that tourism management is also strongly desired. Our county has been taking some pretty bold steps in, you know, capping the new hotel accommodation developments. The council also put forward legislation to the state that didn't pass yet, that would allow the counties to regulate the amount of tourist cars on the road. In June, the CNHA received the award from HTA and about $34 million to start, you know, really taking a different look at tourism and really getting to management and away from marketing. So I'm really excited to see, you know, what comes of that. Yeah, I'll just stop there, but I support tourism management.
And Nick, Nick, what about you? What is your take on this?
So it was really good that the Hawaii Tourism Authority did not get the contract. They were given, using Mahina's figure of 34 million, they were given $80 million to market Hawaii, which is just absurd. There's going to be people who are going to want to come to Hawaii. And of course, I'm specifically living in Maui. And we saw during the pandemic, the road was blocked right near where I live for people driving out to Hana. And you could see it was just so nice if you did go out, there was no one on the road. And so we need to diversify the economy. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different ideas, ones that I haven't even thought of to diversify the economy. So we do need to manage our tourism numbers. There's a carrying capacity for each island. And here in Maui, our community plan, our general plan has a carrying capacity, and we keep on breaking. I think it's like 1/3 of tourists to residents, and we often go to half of the people on Maui are visitors. Now, I have been to all 50 states and 50 plus countries around the world. So I traveled. So I don't want to stop people from coming here. But again, having a father, for example, that was disabled, triple amputee from World War II, he could not be able to get around. So accommodation needs to be made for people who are physically challenged. So you can't just say everybody has to then go a certain place and can't go someplace else. But we obviously know that tourism has been destroying this state. And now there's a lot of movement towards being able to manage tourism in a different way.
You know, we have just a few minutes left, so this is unfortunately the last question we have for you tonight, but I do want to get a little personal and find out from each of you, just in the few minutes we have left, what in your own personal experience and your life experience do you feel makes you uniquely qualified to hold this seat? And Nick, we'll start with you.
Wow, thank you so much for the question. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be here and share with the community. You know, I've been for 30 years, I've been involved in Maui County. 9 years, I was the producer and host of Maui Talks TV on Akaku, the local public access. And I still have people coming up to me and said, hey, I remember every Tuesday night, Maui Talks TV. I also was a teacher, both in the public schools and at the Maui site of Hawaii Job Corps. Some of you out there may have been my former students. The quality of life is the significant issue facing these mostly rural areas. And so my travel, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. I have numerous academic credentials. I've served on a few boards of directors. I also served on county commissions. For 2 years, I was a volunteer mediator with the Small Claims Division of the District Court. So I have extensive, unique qualities. I have been involved in the community for years, both as an activist and as a volunteer. And so all of the background that I have really would, plus a major one that I talk about is we have over half the community of half the country.
I have to let you leave it there. I'm so sorry because we want to make sure we get to everybody.
Thank you very much. That's fine. Yeah, I could go on. Thank
Scott,
you very
Scott,
much
tell us about yourself and what in your unique, what you bring uniquely to this seat.
I have a very diverse background. I've experienced everything from being a childhood actor to being an EMT to being a professional sports coach, working with at-risk youth and children from the juvenile background. Overall, my passion to serve and to just be of service and to really want to see a better future for our next generation. That's really what it is. You know, it's the same thing that what qualified a bartender from New York to become a U.S. Congresswoman. You know, it was a passion to serve, someone who wanted to get in there and make life better for the next generation. So that's really what, you know, no matter what my overall education background, what I've experienced, I think the heart for service is truly what we need in our elected officials, especially at this time that's more crucial than ever.
Okay, and Mahina will give you the last word.
Yeah, so I don't know, you know, all other politicians, but I know who I am. I'm born and raised Native Hawaiian from Molokai. I know at the core of who I am is Aloha Aina, and that's unwavering. And that will always be like my top priority, and that will always be the part of me that doesn't change ever. So protecting and caring for our resources, you know, without fresh, breathable air, clean drinking water, fertile soils, living reefs, an atmosphere that can still tolerate human life, we don't exist. And I think, you know, and that goes to climate change, and you know, that's the looming elephant in the room, and we know what we need to do to slow it down to give our next generation a fighting chance, but we're not doing it. So I think that that's what I bring, is that urgency, and that is a top priority for me to, you know, build resilience and prepare our communities for what's coming. And I hate to sound so dismal, but it is. And alongside that, at the same time, bringing relief to the everyday in front of our face issues that affect our quality of life that we've been speaking about, you know, throughout this discussion tonight, and really helping our families be able to make ends meet, really, and be able to thrive in their lives.
Okay.
Also, the corruption piece, like and you know, government corruption. I wanted to speak about that tonight, but okay. Thanks.
And thank you so much. The time does go quite fast. We would like to thank our guests, the candidates for Hawaii State House District 13, Green Party candidate Nick Nakilananda, Democrat Party candidate Mahina Poipoi, and Republican Party candidate Scott Adam. As we get ready for our next segment, please do enjoy this Hiki No story from the student journalist from Hana, Maui.
In the heart of Hana lies Kapuokahi, where the tradition of akule fishing is still practiced. Uncle Blondie Kaina, a Hana fisherman, explains the process of how akule is gathered and its importance to our community.
Amen. The whole purpose is the fish it's for the community actually. It's a community use. Everybody in the community have fish. The first thing we do is make sure that the net is loaded up in the boat. That's top priority. Then the kilo man His job is to come and look where the fish are. And if the fish is in the bay or a spot where that we can go and get it, then he'll get, my job is to go get the paddlers.
We get out there working with the kilo, which is Uncle Blondie, and he's on the shoreline, and we're in the water, and we have communication with the radio, and if it's all possible, we're all watching the fish, and then he'll let us know when the time to go and drop the net, and we'll start from there and go around the pile.
And then we have the bus boat. Their job is to go around and around in the net so that the fish be scared and go to the net, and then we can bring it up. So what they do when they're done, they'll stay over there and then they'll help Randy and whoever paddles with him. And they're there to help pick up the net, take the boat up to Igat's house where we do, everybody comes by, the whole community, whatever people come from the community and take out the fish, put them in a cooler, ice them down, and then we mahele the fish.
Mahele means to divide and to share. The akule caught is shared with the community. This tradition is a multi-generational tool that teaches respect, hard work, patience, discipline, and ultimately kuleana. Kuleana to our ocean, to our running streams, to our ohana, and to our ancestral lands. However, because of the depletion of ocean life and overfishing in the waters of Ohana, the akule tradition is in danger.
Oh, it changed a lot. From 20 years ago, and beyond that, it was easy to get akule. Now, it's rare. It's getting less, and getting less.
This is Teua Teiva from Hana K-12 School signing off for Hikino.
Aloha and welcome back to Insights on PBS Hawaii. State House District 36 used to be located in Mililani and surrounding neighborhoods, but after redistricting, District 36 is now made up entirely of central Waipahu. The newly reapportioned district will look to elect a first-time legislator. We appreciate your continued participation. Please do call or email with your questions. You can also join the conversation right now on our Facebook page. So let's meet our guest. Democrat Rochelle Lamasao was raised in Waipahu. She is the daughter of Filipino immigrants and graduated from Waipahu High School. She has a BA in political science from the University of Hawaii at Manoa and is currently an office manager at the state legislature. Republican Viamoniti Lautaha was born and raised in Tonga. He moved to Hawaii to attend Brigham Young University. He has earned a master's and a PhD in information technology. He owns One Leaf Technology Incorporated and is also the chairperson of the Tongan community of Hawaii. Welcome to you both. Thank you for being here. As we said right at the start, this seat will hold a first-time lawmaker. So I'm interested to know why you each decided to step into the race. Let's start with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me, myself, and to be here at PBS for the first time. And I'm grateful to be here with Rochelle Lamasao to share some of our thoughts about District 36. Why I run? Because this great nation, the United States of America, gave me an opportunity to gain education here in America and to start a family, gave me an employment, and also become a business owner. And now it is time to give back to my community and also to this great nation of America.
Okay, and Rochelle, what about you? Why did you decide to throw your hat in the ring?
So I grew up in Waipahu, and you know, I've dedicated my life to serving my community. I've worked at the legislature for a Waipahu representative, and I've also been serving on the Waipahu Neighborhood Board for many years. I've also served as advisory board member for the Waipahu High School Natural Sciences Academy. So, you know, now I have the opportunity to serve alongside other legislators at the state legislature and to serve the state and my community.
I'm interested, you know, given all of that experience, tell us what you think is the biggest issue facing the district and what specifically the state can do about it.
Sure. So, you know, as I've been walking throughout the district, I've noticed that a lot of the concerns are about cost of living here in Hawaii. You know, a lot of my friends, a lot of my families, and more than I can count in my hands, have moved to like states like Nevada, Washington State, Arizona, where there's, you know, less financial burdens and less taxes on things like food and even their income, you know. And so I want to be able to provide for the state of Hawaii and for our local families by looking at initiatives like cutting our income tax for our local families. And I've also been a single mother myself for 7 years, so maybe providing other assistance like paid family leave, so families can focus on raising their children and also their elderly family members as well.
What about you? What do you think is the biggest issue facing the district, and what specifically can the state do to help?
Thank you. Very similar, you know, is the housing crisis in Waipahu. And we can tell from door to door on a daily basis, you know, multiple family lives in one house. Not only that, but one indication is like parking street overflow. There's so many people lives in one place. And not only that, on top of that is a crime. So in Waipahu, when we do door to door, we notice that almost all houses has gate. Gated with iron gate, with iron door, with iron windows, and they put cameras all over. And I remember like 2 days ago, I was speaking to one of the fathers in Waipahu, and he was concerned about there was an incident that a guy stole a vehicle in Waipahu. And the police, they came, they got the guy, but I guess they never put him in jail or something like that. But that is one indication that, you know, crimes is one of the top issues in Waipahu. Second of all is one of the guy behind Midas. There's a little place there called Tongaville, and he also concerned about the stealing of the catalytic converter from the area.
I'm interested, you know, you both mentioned affordable housing and the challenges of finding housing in that community. It's something that we hear throughout the state, and one thing that goes sort of hand in glove with that is the issue of homelessness. Yes. What specifically do you think the state could do to address homelessness?
Thank you. I think that this issue is not a new concern or a new issue for the state of Hawaii. This issues we have been with this issue for the long time. I have a sister that worked for social work here in Hawaii, and she mentioned that it's an ongoing issue here in Hawaii. But I think, like personally for Waipahu, we need to identify what's the problem, what we can do, and we can come up with a solution. We can unite nonprofit organizations, perhaps maybe churches. There's so many churches in Waipahu, like 17 churches in Waipahu, as far as I know, that they can collaborate and cooperate to come up with a solution to care for this homelessness in Waipahu, because they are our brothers and sisters.
What's your take on how the state can better address this issue?
So as I've been talking to stakeholders and just to the community in general, it seems like there's a lack of professionals to address some of the mental concerns, some of the safety concerns, especially the resources for our police and our manpower. So there is, I think, layers that go beyond to addressing homelessness. And all of these things need to be funded. We need to fund more programs and for programs to hire more social work professionals, and then also to hire more law enforcement so that we can continue to service areas such as places in Waipahu on a regular basis. And then also identifying, the services or the nonprofits in our community so that we can unite together and address the homeless concerns in our community as well.
We like to bring in viewer questions. This person sent in a question to our program a little bit earlier in the hour, but did specify that it's for both races, so I want to read it again. And Rochelle, we'll start with you on this. Kent in Kailua says, President Biden took steps today to perhaps decriminalize marijuana on the federal level. Is it time to legalize recreational marijuana in Hawaii? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so the state has legalized medical marijuana and slowly has allowed the growing of hemp. And I know in most or other states, they've had some concern about cross-pollination in hemp, where if we start to grow recreational marijuana and we already have the medicinal use, I do have the concern of that cross-pollination and it affecting the hemp market. But also the regulatory side. Will we have the right laws to enforce recreational use? And will we have the manpower to also enforce that as well? So that's some of the concerns I would have in recreational marijuana in the state of Hawaii.
So it's not something that you would support?
I'm open to the idea. I just would like to address some of those concerns first.
Okay.
Yes.
And what do you say to Kent and Kailua? What's your take on recreational marijuana in Hawaii?
Oh, thank you. As a man of faith and as a seminary teacher for my church, I teach my students, about the word of wisdom, about no smoking, no tobacco, no alcohol. It won't make no sense for me to say that I support it, and then I go every morning and teach my kids about don't smoke, marijuana. So my stand over here is that we need to really look into that. Take a survey, what the people of Hawaii think about it, especially my constituent at Waipahu. What do they think about legalizing recreational marijuana? We already have an issue with a medicinal, use of marijuana, because when people are smoking, we smoke too, if they're smoking close to us.
Okay. I'm interested to know, so what I'm hearing is a no from you on that.
Yes.
Okay. Waipahu is pretty notorious for illegal fireworks. Do you think the state can do anything to address that issue?
I think they already did. So I think there's a law,
There may be a law, but it doesn't seem like it's quite being followed.
Yes, and I guess, it's the same, Waipahu, they're very big on that, especially on New Year and the 4th of July, they firecrack, the whole town of Waipahu. But yeah, I think we should involve cops, for them to patrol more often, in Waipahu and look for people who are actually doing fireworks on any given time.
Do you think this is a problem for the community, or is this just part of the culture of Waipahu?
I think it's some part it is, but also it is a big concern because there are a lot of elderly folks that live in our community. I notice when I talk to stakeholders again, like our law enforcement, they say that most people do not want to follow up after they have reported the fireworks that were blowing up next door. And so that's one issue, but also there is a lack of enforcement in that area, especially when we do have goods that come in. We don't have enough inspectors in our shipyards to make sure that, illegal contraband things like fireworks do not come into our state. And so we need to relook at what we can do at the forefront of receiving goods to make sure things like illegal fireworks are not coming into our state. Yeah.
One of the things the pandemic really exposed was our reliance on goods and services from the continent, specifically when it comes to food. My understanding is that Hawaii has about less than a week's worth of food on hand at any given time if the ships were to stop. So given those weaknesses that were really brought to the forefront, what do you think the legislature can do to greater enhance Hawaii's food security and perhaps support local agriculture?
Yeah, there is a growing need for agriculture, growing food in Hawaii. And one way we can support our local farmers is to make sure we buy local, and then also to provide, the state can also provide more land for our local farmers and ranchers. And also providing other services for like compliance and making sure that they are meeting the necessary business regulations, food regulations, things like that. That's one way we can support our local farmers. And I know there is a big need for also farm labor for some of our current farm operations. It's so hard to find workers at the moment. So what are some ways that we can incentivize folks to work at a farm? So maybe we can look again at some incentives like cutting our income tax, so that way maybe our farmers can provide more income to their farm workers and farm labor. Yeah.
What do you think the state can do to better enhance our food security?
First of all, I mean, let me tell you this, that almost every home in Waipahu, they plant like all kind foods outside. You know, that's an indication that we need local food here in Hawaii, you know, food supplies, food security, food sustainability. One of the things that I think of is incorporate the idea, you know, of growing food here in Hawaii in our school curriculum, public school, and even, you know, up to universities, you know, because we are far away from the mainland. I'm telling you that. We are far away from the mainland, and there's no technology that can provide us food in like an hour or something like that. So we need to educate our people here in Hawaii to learn how to grow food, how to cook, how to prepare it, and how to eat it. Tell me how many people can, you know, how to cook ulu. I don't think not very many people know how to do that. So I think that is school curriculum, incorporate the idea of agriculture and food supplies. And not only that, legislators, they need to focus on that. They need to have that mindset that this is Hawaii. We are under the United States of America, but this is the island of Hawaii.
I want to ask you about public corruption. We saw some pretty high-profile corruption cases in the legislature and also in other parts of government throughout the state, unfortunately, in the last year or so. You know, to people who are sort of frustrated with the whole system, what do you say to them? What is your take on how we can better address eliminating corruption in public spaces like the government?
Oh, thank you. You know, I mean, solution is always a long-term and a short-term. So, I mean, long-term is family. Family is the most important unit in society. Mom and dad and children. They are the small government in our society. And if mom and dad stays home and help, you know, educating kids, teach them, you know, on what to do, you know, to behave, you know, good in society, then perhaps it will eliminate some of the crimes and corruption, you know, because they'll take that mindset with them all the way from high school, all the way to college, and all the way to employment. And not only that, but maybe for short term, we need to utilize technology to track some of the, you know, transactions, you know, communication, you know. We can use technology to trace and track, you know, perhaps it can help us to identify, you know, where the source of corruption are coming from.
What's your take on public corruption? We saw these very high-profile scandals. How do we restore trust in public government?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. Those cases alone have devastated our state and especially our community. And so what I'm hearing from the public is that they want more transparency. They want to be able to trust our government. And one way the legislature can start doing that is by even opening up the testimony time. Right now, folks are allowed to submit testimony 24 hours after a hearing notice. Maybe expanding that time to 48 hours or even longer to allow the public to participate in the legislative process and to allow them to review the laws thoroughly so they can provide their suggestions and recommendations to things, and so that we can just be more transparent and build the public trust within government.
You know, one of the things that has gained traction in this conversation is the idea of term limits. What is your take on that?
Well, I am open to the idea of term limits. I think it's important to acknowledge institutional knowledge, and it takes time to build that. And relationships within the legislature also takes time. So before we even address term limits, we also have to identify how long will it take for us to build that institutional knowledge? Because even if I work at the legislature, you know, sometimes reading the budget can be very cumbersome and it can be confusing. And so I have to reach out to my colleagues to find answers into how to read certain things. And so I think we just need to look at, you know, institutional knowledge and putting importance in that as well.
What's your take on term limits? Should we have them in Hawaii?
A lot of people, they you know, when they found out that I'm running for this political office, that, you know, that is one of the things that they told me to at least support, the term limits, you know. And the reason why, because term limits makes legislators accountable for what they're doing. Because, you know, you go in, you know exactly you're going to have 2 years. You go in and you do whatever you can, you know, to whatever project that needs to be delivered, to deliver it in a timely manner. And not only that, but it helps, you know, the other departments, you know, in the government do their job too.
Okay. You know, I asked this one in the last panel, and I was very interested in the response, so I'll ask it of you both as well. What unique in your life experience do you bring to this office? If you were to hold this seat, what in your life experience do you think will help you serve?
Well, I'm a people person. I'm a school teacher. I mean, as a substitute teacher for Waipahu High School. And I'm a seminary teacher for my church. So I've been doing this ever since I returned here to Hawaii in 2013. And I'm the chairperson of the Tongan community of Hawaii. I love to work with people. I serve my mission for my church in New Zealand, like 1998 to 2000. I love to go talk to people, and I believe that allows me to be a very effective and a very efficient leaders if elected.
And Rochelle, what about you? What about in your personal life experience? What has sort of led you to this point that you think brings you unique abilities to this seat?
Thank you. So like I said, I grew up in Waipahu, and Waipahu is my home. Ever since I could walk, I remember being at the church and serving the people there. And that has been my lifelong commitment, is just to serve the people of Waipahu. And also, I've been a single mom for seven years now, and I want to be able to leave a legacy, especially in Waipahu, so that my son can look forward to living there in our home that we live in right now, and be able to say that, this is my home, and I'm gonna live here forever. And I want people just like myself to come back to Hawaii and find a home here.
Yeah, and on that topic, I'm interested to know, what do you think we can do to diversify the economy? Because if your son and, my children and,
right,
your son as well, I know we're all parents on this panel, want to stay here in Hawaii, they need to find good paying jobs. And what kind of a future can we guarantee them without diversifying the economy? So what do you think that the state specifically can do to that end?
One of the things is that Hawaii is so special, and everyone wants a piece of paradise. And one thing we can capitalize is our agriculture, because we can ship value-added items and even fresh produce around the world. So instead of putting a focus on just tourism, why not put a focus on capitalizing our goods that we can provide to the world that everybody wants? And that's one way we can definitely diversify our economy, and supporting our local farmers in that sense by providing opportunities to create these value-added items.
How do you think we can best diversify the economy so that all of our children here and those watching at home as well have an opportunity to stay in the islands?
Thank you. I mean, remember back in 2020, there was a long line in Costco, people going for food, for water. And they were only told they only can take 2 cases of water from Costco. So agriculture is a good thing, is a key for the state of Hawaii. Again, we are far away from the mainland. And we need agriculture. We need to also bring in, the industry of art and crafts, because that is one thing that is unique about Hawaii. People around the world, all over the world, they want to come here to Hawaii to look at things that being made here in Hawaii, not in China or not in Mexico or anywhere else, made here in Hawaii. And another thing is technology. We need to make partnership, if elected, I want to make sure that we have partnership with Google, with Facebook, with Amazon, to build a long-term relationship with them, so that our children at public school, high school, they have a learning experience from those, from those technological companies. And maybe when they graduate from university, they can, work from home.
Okay. We have just about 2 minutes left, so I would just ask for a final statement. I know that you both have been going door to door, and as you go and pound the pavement, if you will, when you're making that final pitch to folks, what do you say to them, and what would you like to say to the folks watching tonight about why they should place their trust in you?
Well, Waipahu, thank you so much, and thank you for watching our show tonight, and we want to extend our love and aloha for all of you folks, and please vote for myself, and I'm here to help our District 36, Waipahu. Thank you.
Okay, Rochelle, what do you say to the viewers tonight about why they should entrust you with this responsibility?
Yeah. I like to say, thank you for the opportunity to just being your Democratic candidate. I grew up in Waipahu, and I want to serve the people of Waipahu for as long as I can. And I hope that you would vote for me for this November 8 general election. Vote Rochelle Lamasau. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here tonight. Mahalo for joining us. We do thank our guests. Candidates for Hawaii House of Representatives, District 36, Republican candidate Viamoniti Lautaha and Democrat candidate Rochelle Lamasau. Next week, we will talk to the candidates looking to replace Kai Kahele for District 2 of the U.S. House of Representatives. Please do join us then. I'm Yanji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha. Have a great evening.